Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last time we talked about one of the precursors to a big event that happened in Ramadan of the second year of the Hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We talked about a small expedition that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had sent with a special mission, sort of a mission impossible, and how they came back successful from that mission. And not only were they successful, there were some shadows around the accomplishments of that mission, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirmed what they happened and approved what they have done in that expedition. And when these companions, and Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Jahsh was the leader of this expedition, when they heard the news that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala approved what they have done, they asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, should we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would write this, would inscribe this for us as a jihad, as a ghazwa? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran, confirming that again, the ayat that come in Surah Al-Baqarah after that passage describing what happened and the fighting in Ash-Shahr Al-Haram. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يَرْجُونَ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted that sacrifice from them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has counted this as a ghazwa, and it counts for their sake as struggle in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we are in Ramadan of the second year of the Hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Back in Mecca, a strange thing happened. Quraysh now heard about the killing of Ala ibn al-Hadrami, the leader of the group, the trade caravan, and they wanted to seek revenge. But the aunt of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Atika bint Abdul Muttalib, who was living in Mecca, confided in her brother Sayyidina al-Abbas radiallahu anhu, who according to some narrations was still a non-believer. Again, some narrations say that he was a believer but hiding his Islam in Mecca and caring for the siqaya and the duties of Quraysh and Bani Hashim in Mecca, these duties that were taken by Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. And when he passed away, Sayyidina al-Abbas radiallahu anhu took these responsibilities, so he had to stay in Mecca. So again, according to different narrations, some of them say that he was a believer hiding his belief, and some of them say that he was a non-believer, which is the most authentic of these narrations. So Atika, the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, confided in her brother that she saw a dream. She saw a dream that was strange. It has certain significance or certain symbolism. She said that I saw in my dream someone going on top of one of the mountains overlooking Mecca, shouting very loudly as if warning the people of Mecca. And then I saw a huge boulder, a huge rock, rolling down the mountain until it fell close to Al-Kaaba, and then it shattered, and fragments of that rock entered in every house of Mecca. So Al-Abbas told her, this is not a regular dream, this is a vision. It's got to have a certain meaning or significance. She told him, don't tell this dream or this vision to anyone. And Sayyidina Al-Abbas told her, okay, I'm not going to tell it to anyone. But still, his mind was working. What's going on? What's the significance of this dream? And he had a friend, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, one of the leaders of Quraysh. And he told him, you know what, Utbah, last night my sister saw such and such dream, and it was after 3 days from now that someone is going to go on the mountain. And he basically described that vision to him and then told him, but please don't tell this to anyone. Now Atika told Al-Abbas, don't tell it to anyone. Al-Abbas told Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, don't tell it to anyone. Utbah ibn Rabi'ah told it to someone else who said, and told him, don't tell it to anyone. And by the way, that's the nature of secrets, what people keep as secrets. If you give that secret to someone else and say, don't tell it to anyone, you can't guarantee that. Sooner or later, that secret is going to slip and is going to go from one individual to another until you hear about it in the end. So if you have a secret, keep it to yourself. So the news started spreading in Mecca one by one. People kept telling, each individual told another individual, and that individual told another individual, and so on, until the news had a full circle and came to Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, Amr ibn Hisham, the leader of Bani Makhzum, who are competing with Bani Hashim on honor and power and privilege. So he saw Sayyidina al-Abbas walking, and he told him, come on Abbas, I want to ask you something. And Sayyidina Abbas wasn't expecting any nasty speech from Abu Jahl, but Abu Jahl told him, isn't it enough that your men claim to be prophets? When did your women also become prophets? So Abbas told him, what are you talking about? He said, what is that vision that your sister claims to have seen? And Abbas said, he pretended that he doesn't know about it. He said, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. He said, didn't your sister say such and such? And Abbas said, who told you that? I have no idea. That's not true. He was so embarrassed, but he couldn't confirm. So he said, I don't know, that's not true. Who told you about that? And Abu Jahl said, well, you know what? We're going to give you these 3 days. Your sister said after 3 days this is going to happen. We're going to give you these 3 days. And after 3 days, we're going to make a proclamation in Mecca that the household of Bani Hashim are the most lying people in Mecca. No one should trust them. No one should believe them. And he kept insulting him and insulting his family. Al-Abbas was so upset, and he went back to his sister and she told him, didn't I tell you not to share this with anyone? Did you accept that Abu Jahl insults the men and the women of Quraysh? You shouldn't have let this pass. And she kept charging him, and he said, you know what? Tomorrow or in a couple of days when I see him, I'm going to insult him back. I'm not going to let this pass. At that time, there was a trade caravan led by Abu Sufian ibn Harb that was on its way back from Ash-Sham to Mecca. 2 months earlier, the Prophet ﷺ tried to intercept this trade caravan, but they were a bit late, so it slipped and it went on its way to Ash-Sham. Of course, this is loaded with goods and money, half of Quraysh's annual trade. So now they were planning to intercept it on the way back. Since they missed it on the front leg of the trip, now they're trying to intercept it on the way back. Abu Sufyan heard about the attempt of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions to intercept that caravan, so he was careful. He planned in his mind, on the way back, I'm not going to take the usual route. I'm going to take a different route, a little bit longer, but it's going to be harder for them to intercept us and to capture what we have. So the news came from Medina that the Prophet ﷺ is planning for another attack on that trade caravan of Quraysh. And 3 days after Atikah saw that vision, someone came and mounted that same mountain close to Al-Haram and started shouting, warning Quraysh, saying, Al-Latima, Al-Latima, your trade caravan is going to be confiscated. Muhammad and his army are going to acquire your trade, and go ahead and save your money and save your wealth and save your honor and save your pride. Do not let the army of the Muslims do that to you. So that was very alarming news to Quraysh. Now they have heard about the Prophet ﷺ sending small expeditions here and there, even into their backyard in between Mecca and Al-Ta'if, but now acquiring half of their annual trade. That is going to be a big blow to their finances and their economy. Therefore, they started preparing an army to invade Medina, to try to salvage this caravan and try to intercept the army of the Prophet ﷺ. So that man, when he made that announcement, Al-Abbas was walking towards Abu Jahl to pay him back for his aggression and insults. But Abu Jahl, when he saw Al-Abbas, he ran away. And Al-Abbas said, I didn't think that he was so coward. I thought that he was braver than that. But later on, he learned about that man who came and warned about the caravan being lost and so on and so forth. So Abu Jahl used this as the opportunity to go and accomplish what he has always dreamed about, invading Medina and killing the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. And he said, we are going to prepare a strong and a huge army. Let all the leaders of Quraysh be part of that effort. And if you can't go, you should depute someone else or pay someone else to go on your behalf. So he called all the leaders of Mecca, Utbah ibn Rabi'a, Shayba ibn Rabi'a, Nadr ibn al-Harith, Suhayl ibn Amr, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, himself Abu Jahl, Nabih and Munabbah, the sons of Al-Hajjaj. All the leaders of Quraysh were part of that army or that expedition, with the exception of one leader, that was Abu Lahab, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdul Uzza ibn Abdul Muttalib, known as Abu Lahab. He could not travel, so he hired someone to go on his behalf. He paid and supported someone to go on his behalf to participate in this expedition. And they thought it's going to be a walk in the park. We are almost 1,000 people, very well armed, very well experienced in fighting, and then we are going to join with the men from the caravan of Abu Sufian, so we're going to be even stronger. And we have some allies in Medina that can give us support if we need to. Abdullah ibn Ubay, the leader of the hypocrites, and his allies, and maybe also the Jewish tribes in Medina would like to participate in this effort, since we have a common enemy, and that's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. So they went with that intention that they are going to invade Medina to salvage the caravan of Abu Sufyan and at the same time eradicate the Muslims in Medina. Once they have started their trip, now the Prophet ﷺ called for some of his companions, saying that we are going to go to intercept that caravan of Quraysh. Whoever wants to join in this effort, let them come with me. So it was not a general call for all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina to participate in this effort. It was, if you want, you can come. Everyone thought it was going to be an easy thing. A trade caravan is not very well armed. We're going to acquire the goods and come back. There's not going to be any major fighting. And we don't care about killing these people. We're going to release them as we did with the other two prisoners before. But we need to acquire this money to prevent Quraysh from preparing an army to invade us, and at the same time as a compensation for everything that we have left back in Mecca. And the Prophet ﷺ and his companions went with that intention. So it was a small group, a group of about 313 or 314 companions of the Prophet ﷺ. The significance of that number has something to do with another group that was always also about 313, 314. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after revealing to the believers the ayat that were given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his hijrah, أُذِنَ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا, the authorization to wage war against Quraysh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also revealed to the believers several ayat to encourage them and to show them that if you are doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all capable, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is almighty, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will support you. So going back to Surah Al-Baqarah, we find the ayat telling the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and telling us actually about an event, about a group of people at the time of Bani Israel, after Sayyidina Musa ala nabina alayhi salatu wassalam, and the story of Talut and Jalut. ألم تر إلى الملئ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي له مبعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله. Have you heard about the group of Bani Israel after Musa, when they called their king and asked him to prepare an army for them to fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to defeat their enemies that have been oppressing them and fighting them. And when these people were, their king, their prophet told them, and what if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you that? Are you going to turn back? And they said, why would we turn our backs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have been oppressed, we have lost our children, we have lost our families. We need someone, we need a leader to fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the prophet told them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent Talut as your king. So the first rebellion happened. Why Talut? He's not the richest, he's not from the offspring of Yehuda, the most prominent tribe of the Asbat of Bani Israel. So why Talut? And the Prophet told them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preferred him and gave him strength in body and more knowledge than anyone else. And Talut started marshalling the army to go and achieve their wish to fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that army was a large army, about 80,000 people. And when they started traveling, there should be some tests to make sure that these people are really doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Talut was appointed as the leader, many of these 80,000 said, no, we don't approve him as a leader. So basically, part of that army just went away. But still, the core and the bulk of the army were still with Talut. Now they passed by, they're traveling in the desert, they got very tired, very exhausted, very thirsty, and now there's a river. But Talut tells them, listen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told me, you should not drink from this river. If you are really, really thirsty, you can just take a sip in your hand, take a handful of water. And here, according to some scholars, they say that a big person is going to have a big hand. A small person is going to have a small hand. So each one is going to take enough water in a handful to quench their thirst and to preserve their lives. So he told them, if you drink to your full, do not follow me. If you do not drink at all, or if you just take a sip in your hand, a handful, now you can still follow me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَشَرِبُوا مِنْهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْهُمْ. The majority of them drank from that river until they were full. Once they become full, they become heavy, and now they change their minds. Oh, we're not going to go and fight anymore. Of the 80,000, 76,000 did that. So the 80 were condensed into only 4,000. And these 4,000 kept marching with Talut until they saw the enemy. The enemy were strong people, giants. And when they saw these giants, they said, لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده. They said, oh, this is a strong army. We can't. We are very small in number. We are only 4,000 and they are probably 100,000 or so. They are well armed. They were well prepared. They're strong. We can't fight them. So of the 4,000, only 313 stood fast with their leader. 313, which is the same number of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that expedition so far. And we know the rest of the story that when Jalut, Goliath, when he asked for duel, none of the army of Talut was brave enough to say, I am going to go and fight him, until a young boy, young in size, young in age, emerged after Talut asked so many times for volunteers. He at the end said, whoever is going to volunteer to do that, I am going to give him my money and my power, and I'm going to marry him to my daughter. That was the highest honor. So finally, that young boy, that young shepherd emerged, and when Talut looked at him, he said, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be able to do it. And he said, yes, I am. I can do it. So he asked him, do you have any past experience in fighting? He said, well, I was herding my flock one day, and a wolf came, and I fought that wolf and I killed him to protect my flock. He said, well, that's not really fighting. So he said, well, another time a lion came and tried to attack my sheep, and I fought the lion and I killed him. And I don't think the leader of the enemy is going to be stronger than a lion. So Talut told him, okay, you go ahead and fight. Take my horse, take my armor, and go and fight this enemy. This young boy, Sayyidina Dawood ala nabina alayhi salatu wasalam, he went to fight the leader of the enemy one-on-one, but he turned back. So people said, was he scared? And he said, you know what? I'm not used to fighting with this armor and on the back of a horse. I have my slingshot. I'm very experienced at using my slingshot. This is my weapon. So I'm going to fight the way I'm used to. And he went back, and basically he killed Jalut with his slingshot. And as soon as the army of Jalut saw that their leader was killed, they ran away, and that was the victory of the Muslims from Bani Israel, this group who had belief and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These 313 were victorious over a very large army, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals at the end of that story, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Were it not for that infighting, that fighting between the truth and the falsehood, if the falsehood were left to be rampant without the truth opposing it and fighting it, the whole earth would be corrupt. وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضِ. So the believers around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are listening to this revelation coming to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, learning about the stories and learning that it's not a matter of number or armament. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on your side, no one can oppose you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not on your side, who can give you victory? So when they left Mecca, when they left Medina, that small number of companions around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had some camels as a ride, and they had only 2 horses. Some people say only 1 horse, but some narrations say 2 horses, one with Al-Miqdad ibn Amr, also known as Al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad, and one with Al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the rest of them were only having camels. They went trying to intercept that caravan, and by the time they arrived, they learned Abu Sufyan managed to flee one more time. He was so smart. He was an expert in the different back roads in the desert. So he managed to take a detour, and he saved the caravan. But they heard about another group that's camping not too far. They expected this to be the caravan of Abu Sufyan. So the Prophet ﷺ sent some scouts to go and see what's going on. And these scouts came back with some bad news. The bad news are twofold actually. Abu Sufyan is gone, the caravan is gone, and now we have a huge army that's invading, a well-prepared army, and that army has all the leaders of Mecca who came with one idea in mind: vengeance, violence, killing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Now this group of companions around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are not prepared for such fighting. They do not even carry enough weapons. They did not have all the believers from Medina. So what should we do? And they captured actually 2 slaves from that other camp who were filling pots with water and taking the camels to drink from a water pond. So they took them to the camp of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ at that time was praying, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ kept questioning these 2 slaves. They asked them, "Who are you with? Are you with the trade caravan of Abu Sufyan?" And they said, "What Abu Sufyan? We came with Quraysh, with Utbah ibn Rabi'a, Shayba ibn Rabi'a, Abu Jahl, this and that." So they kept beating them. That's not the news that they wanted to hear. And at the end, the slaves said, yes, 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 we came with Abu Sufyan. By that time, the Prophet ﷺ was done with his prayer and he told his companions, you beat them if they tell you the truth, and when they lie to you, you let them go? Yes. So he called these two slaves and asked them, tell me, who is in that group? And they gave the names of the leaders of that group. And the Prophet ﷺ said, and how many are they? They said, we don't know. We have no idea of counting all of them. So the Prophet ﷺ asked the question, how many camels do you slaughter every day? And they said, well, some days 9, some days 10. It was well known as a ratio that a camel would feed about 100 people. So the Prophet ﷺ told his companions, the enemy, the other group, the other army, is somewhere between 900 to 1,000. What should we do? So the Prophet ﷺ called for consultation. What should we do? Now we are at a situation where these companions are not prepared for fighting. They did not mentally or physically prepare themselves for fighting. They do not have the weapons. There are many other believers in Medina who did not accompany them on this expedition. Now this army came with the intention of violence, so they're well prepared and well armed. What should we do? This is a big question, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ, although he ﷺ could have told them, we are going to do this or we're going to do that, the Prophet ﷺ wanted to make sure that his companions are unanimous in their feeling and their hearts are united and they're willing to follow the Prophet ﷺ, whatever the consequences might be. So inshallah, next time we're going to talk about what were the results of that consultation and what took place after that day and how that day became a major milestone, one of the major milestones in the history of, not of the Prophet ﷺ, but in the history of Islam in general. So until next time, inshallah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.